A little girl stood in the rain, clutching a faded photograph. She looked up at the Mafia boss and asked him to be her dad for just one day. What she didn't know, he was the reason she needed a dad in the first place. And that one day would cost him everything. The rain came down in sheets, turning the Manhattan alley into a river of grime and regret. Victor Romano stepped over a puddle that reflected the neon sign of a pawn shop, his Italian leather shoes somehow still pristine despite the filth. Behind him, the warehouse door slammed shut. Another deal closed, another politician's soul purchased. "Boss, cars this way," Marco said, holding an umbrella that Victor ignored. He liked the rain. It washed things away, at least temporarily. That's when he saw her. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, stood at the mouth of the alley. Her yellow raincoat was too big, sleeves covering her hands. Her sneakers were soaked through. But it was her eyes that stopped Victor mid-stride, dark, determined, unafraid. She shouldn't be unafraid. Not here. Not of him. "Mr. Romano?" Her voice cut through the drumming rain. Victor's hand instinctively moved toward his jacket. Marco and the other bodyguard, Tommy, immediately tensed. Nobody should know his name here. Nobody should be waiting for him. "Get rid of her," Victor muttered. But the girl stepped forward, clutching something against her chest. "Please. I just need one day." Marco moved to intercept, but Victor raised his hand. Something in the girl's voice, desperation mixed with strange courage, made him pause. In his line of work, you learn to read people fast. This kid wasn't sent by rivals. She wasn't bait. She was something worse. She was real. One day of what? Victor heard himself ask. The girl's lip trembled, but she didn't cry. "I need a dad. Just for one day. Tomorrow's Father's Day at school. Everyone's bringing their dad. I don't," she swallowed hard. "I don't have one anymore."
Marco scoffed.
"Boss, we don't have time for." "Shut up," Victor's voice was ice. He walked closer to the girl, his shadow swallowing her small frame. Up close, he could see her face was pale, her hair plastered to her forehead. She'd been standing in the rain for a while, waiting. "What's your name?"
"Mia Kale. Cole."
The name hit Victor like a punch to the gut, but he kept his face blank. 20 years of poker faces in rooms filled with killers had taught him that much. "Who told you to find me, Mia?" She pulled out a photograph from inside her raincoat, protected in a plastic sandwich bag. With shaking hands, she held it up to him. "My dad did. Before he died. He kept a list of names in his desk. People he said were important. Your name was circled 3 times. Victor took the photo. Even in the dim alley light, he recognized the face immediately, Detective Ryan Cole, NYPD, Shield number 7429. The man was in dress uniform, smiling, holding a tiny girl on his shoulders. That girl was now standing in front of him, soaking wet and asking the man who killed her father to play pretend. The universe had a sick sense of humor. "Your dad was a cop," Victor said flatly. "Yes, sir. And he died 2 years ago." Mia nodded, water dripping from her chin. "They said it was gang crossfire. Wrong place, wrong time. But Dad always said there was no such thing as wrong place, wrong time. He said everything happens because somebody makes a choice." Smart kid. Smart, dead cop. Victor remembered that night perfectly. His men were collecting from a debtor who decided to run. The debtor ran straight into a police checkpoint. Shots were fired. One of Victor's guys panicked and shot back. Detective Cole took a bullet meant for a lowlife who owed Victor 50 grand. Collateral damage. That's what Marco had called it. "Why me?" Victor asked, his voice quieter now. "Why not a teacher? A neighbor? Hell, a priest?" Mia looked directly into his eyes with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Because my dad's list said you were dangerous. And my foster mom says only dangerous people survive in this world. I need to learn how to be dangerous so nobody can hurt me again." Victor almost laughed. Almost. This 7-year-old was asking a mafia boss for life lessons in survival. She had no idea she was staring at the reason she needed those lessons in the first place. "Boss, this is insane," Marco whispered urgently. "We have the Castellano meeting in an hour. We can't. Cancel it." "What?" Victor handed the photograph back to Mia, but she didn't take it. "You keep it," she said. "So, you remember what a real dad looks like." The word struck something deep in Victor's chest, something he thought had died years ago. He looked at this little girl, this brave, broken little girl, and made a decision that would either redeem him or destroy him. Probably both. "One day," Victor said. "Tomorrow. I'll pick you up at 8 in the morning. Where's your foster home?" Mia's face lit up like Times Square. She rattled off an address in Queens while Marco looked like he might have a stroke. "Thank you, Mr. Romano. Thank you so much." She turned to run, then stopped. "Oh, and you should know, I Googled you. I know what you do. I know you're a bad man." Victor raised an eyebrow. "And you still want me to be your dad for a day?" Mia smiled, a heartbreaking mixture of hope and sorrow. "My teacher says everyone has good inside them. Maybe you just forgot where you put yours." With that, she disappeared into the rain, her yellow raincoat bobbing like a beacon before vanishing around the corner. Victor stood in the alley, holding the photograph of the man he'd killed, staring at the ghost of innocence that had just asked him for the impossible. "Boss, this is a mistake," Marco said carefully. "A huge mistake." Victor pocketed the photo and walked toward the car.
"Yeah.
"But it's my mistake to make." As Tommy opened the car door, Victor glanced back at the empty alley. Somewhere in the rain-soaked darkness, he could have sworn he heard a little girl laughing. It was the saddest sound he'd ever heard. Victor didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse office, surrounded by bulletproof windows and million-dollar views he never looked at. The photograph of Detective Ryan Cole lay on his desk, illuminated by a single lamp. Victor had pulled the file. He kept files on everyone his organization touched, intentionally or not. Detective Ryan Cole. Age 34 at time of death. Decorated officer. Widower, his wife died of cancer when Mia was 3.
No siblings.
Parents deceased. The man had been alone in the world except for one little girl. One little girl, who was now alone too. "You're actually going through with this?" Marco stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Boss, think about what this looks like. You show up with some cop's kid to a school event? Every Fed in the city will be watching you." "Let them watch." Victor poured himself a whiskey he wouldn't drink. "I gave her my word." "Your word?"
Marco laughed bitterly.
"Since when does your word mean anything to dead cops and their kids?" The glass shattered against the wall, missing Marco's head by inches. "Get out." Marco left without another word, but Victor knew he was right. This was insane, reckless, dangerous on levels he couldn't even calculate yet. But something about that little girl standing in the rain, asking the man who destroyed her life to pretend to be her father, it had cracked something open inside him that he'd welded shut 15 years ago. Victor opened his desk drawer and pulled out another photograph, one he never showed anyone. A boy, maybe 10 years old, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. His son, Daniel, dead at 12. Caught in a rival family's retaliation strike. Collateral damage. That's when Victor Romano had died too, and something colder had taken his place. He'd burned the rival family to the ground, salt and earth, until nothing remained but memories and gravestones. And he'd sworn never to feel anything again. Yet here he was, staring at a dead cop's daughter who'd somehow found the one crack in his armor. "Fool," he muttered to himself. At 7:45 a.m., Victor stood outside a rundown foster home in Queens, feeling more nervous than he'd felt facing down federal prosecutors. His driver, Tommy, waited in the car, confusion written all over his face. The door opened before Victor could knock. Mia stood there in a white dress with yellow flowers, her hair in pigtails tied with ribbons. She'd clearly put enormous effort into looking perfect. Behind her, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, presumably the foster mother, watched with suspicious eyes. You must be Mr. Romano, the woman said coldly. Mia told me about your arrangement. Mrs. Patterson, I presume. I checked you out, her voice could have frozen fire. I know who you are. What you do. If this child comes back with even a scratch. She won't, Victor said simply. Mrs. Patterson studied him for a long moment, then looked down at Mia, whose eyes were pleading. The foster mother sighed. Be back by 6.
And Mia?
Keep your phone on. I will. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. Mia grabbed a small backpack and practically skipped to Victor's car. As Tommy opened the door, Mia paused.
Wait.
I forgot something. She ran back inside and returned with a piece of paper. Here. Victor unfolded it. Crayon drawings, stick figures of a man and a girl holding hands. Above them, in careful child's handwriting, my dad and me. For the Father's Day wall at school, Mia explained. Everyone has to bring one. Victor stared at the drawing. In all his years of violence, manipulation, and survival, nothing had ever gutted him quite like this piece of construction paper. It's good, he managed. In the car, Mia chattered nervously about school, her teacher Miss Henderson, and how she'd told everyone her dad was coming. Victor half-listened, his mind elsewhere. He pulled out his phone and opened the file on Detective Cole again. This time, he read deeper. The detective had been investigating money laundering. Specifically, a scheme running through the same warehouse Victor had left last night. Cole had been getting close, too close. The ambush that killed him wasn't random crossfire. It was supposed to be a warning to the detective. Victor's blood ran cold. It hadn't been an accident at all. Someone in his organization had ordered the hit. Someone had deliberately targeted a cop with a young daughter. Mr. Romano? Are you okay? Mia's small voice broke through his thoughts. Victor looked at her concerned face and made a decision. He would give her this day, a real day, the kind her father would have given her. And then he would find out who'd ordered Detective Cole's death. Because if it was one of his own men, Victor would make them pay. I'm fine, kid, he managed something close to a smile. So, what do dads do on Father's Day? Mia's face brightened. Well, first we have to go to Daddy's favorite place. Is that okay?
Sure.
Where is it? Her smile faded slightly. The cemetery. I want to introduce you. Victor's throat tightened. This little girl wanted to introduce him, the man responsible for her father's death, to her father's grave. The universe wasn't just cruel. It was sadistic. Okay, Victor said quietly. Let's go meet your dad. In the rearview mirror, Tommy's eyes were wide with disbelief. But Victor ignored him. He'd already crossed the line. Might as well see where it led. Probably straight to hell. But maybe, just maybe, there was a stop or two along the way. We're not going to the cemetery yet, Victor said, surprising himself. First we eat.
Mia blinked.
But I already had cereal. Real breakfast. The kind your dad would have made. Victor didn't know why he said it. The words just came out. 20 minutes later, they stood in Victor's penthouse kitchen, all marble countertops and appliances that had never been used. Mia's eyes were wide as she pressed her face against the floor-to-ceiling windows. You can see the whole city from here, she whispered. It's like being in the clouds. Victor opened the refrigerator. Empty except for bottled water and a container of takeout from 3 days ago.
Right.
Okay. Change of plans. Don't you cook? I have people who cook. Mia turned from the window, disappointment flickering across her face. Dads are supposed to cook breakfast. That's what my real dad did. Every Sunday. Pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse. Something twisted in Victor's chest. I don't know how to make Mickey Mouse pancakes. That's okay. Regular pancakes are fine. Victor stared at his kitchen like it was a bomb he needed to defuse. He'd orchestrated million-dollar deals, negotiated with cartel leaders, survived 3 assassination attempts. Surely he could figure out pancakes. Tommy, he called to the driver waiting in the living room. Go buy pancake supplies. Boss, I don't.
Now.
While Tommy was gone, Victor's housekeeper, Lucia, arrived for her morning shift. She stopped dead in the doorway when she saw Mia sitting on the counter, swinging her legs. Mr. Romano? Who is this? Lucia, meet Mia. Victor hesitated. She's visiting today. Lucia's eyes narrowed. She'd worked for Victor for 8 years and had seen plenty of strange things, but never a child in this cold penthouse.
I see.
Does the little miss need anything? Pancakes, Mia announced cheerfully. Mr. Romano's going to make them. Lucia's eyebrows shot up. Mr. Romano doesn't cook. He's learning. Because he's my dad today. The silence that followed was deafening. Lucia looked at Victor with questions in her eyes, but she was smart enough not to ask them. Instead, she smiled gently at Mia. Well then, perhaps I can assist your father. When Tommy returned with supplies, Victor found himself standing at the stove with a mixing bowl, feeling more out of place than he'd ever felt in his life. Mia sat on the counter beside him, reading instructions from a recipe on Lucia's phone. It says add 2 eggs. Mia read carefully. Victor cracked an egg. Half the shell fell into the bowl.
Mia giggled.
You're not very good at this. No kidding, Victor fished out the shell with his fingers. The same fingers that had pulled triggers, signed death warrants, and counted blood money. My dad used to let me crack the eggs, Mia said softly. I always made a mess, but he said that's how you learn. Victor handed her an egg. Go ahead. Mia cracked it perfectly, beaming with pride. As they mixed the batter, flour coating Victor's expensive black shirt, something strange happened. The penthouse didn't feel quite as cold. The silence didn't feel quite as empty. Mr. Romano? Yeah, kid. Why don't you have any pictures? Victor paused mid-stir. She was right. His walls were bare except for expensive art he'd never chosen.
No photographs. No memories.
Nothing personal. I don't like pictures. Why not? Because pictures are for people who want to remember things. Mia thought about this while Victor poured batter onto the smoking griddle. Don't you have good things to remember? Victor flipped the pancake. Too early it splattered and avoided her eyes. Not anymore. That's sad. Mia swung her legs thoughtfully. My dad used to say memories are like gardens. If you only plant sad flowers, that's all you'll see. But if you plant happy ones too, the garden gets prettier. Victor looked at this 7-year-old philosopher whose father he'd taken away. Your dad was a smart man. The smartest. Mia smiled, but her eyes were wet. I miss him so much it hurts sometimes. Right here, she touched her chest. Like something squeezing my heart. Victor knew that feeling intimately. He'd felt it every day since Daniel died. Yeah, he said quietly. I know that hurt. They finished the pancakes in comfortable silence. Victor managed to make one that was almost circular. Mia drowned hers in syrup while Lucia watched from the doorway, a strange expression on her face. These are really good, Mia declared, syrup on her chin. Even the lumpy ones. Victor took a bite of his own pancake. It was terrible. Undercooked in the middle, burn on the edges. But Mia was eating hers like it was the best meal she'd ever had, and somehow that made his taste better. Mr. Romano? Mia set down her fork. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think my dad would be mad? That I asked you to be my pretend dad? The question stabbed straight through Victor's armor. He thought about Detective Ryan Cole, a good man who died protecting a city from people like Victor. Would he be angry? Probably. Furious, even. But Victor looked at Mia's hopeful face and couldn't bring himself to say it. I think, Victor said carefully, your dad would want you to be happy. Even if that means doing things that don't make perfect sense.
Mia smiled, satisfied. Good.
Because I think he sent me to you. What? I found his list on Father's Day last year. Your name was circled. I think it was a sign. Victor felt the floor shift beneath him.
A sign.
Detective Cole's dying clue, leading his daughter straight to her father's killer. The universe wasn't just sadistic, it was playing chess with their lives. Maybe it was, Victor said, his voice rough. After breakfast, as Mia washed her hands, Lucia pulled Victor aside. Mr. Romano, that child adores you already. What happens when today ends? Victor had no answer. He was too busy wondering the same thing. Greenwood Cemetery sprawled across Brooklyn like a city of the dead. Victor's bulletproof Mercedes rolled through the iron gates, Tommy driving slowly along the winding paths. Mia pressed her face to the window, counting headstones. "It's section 17, she said quietly. Near the big oak tree. Victor's throat felt tight. He'd sent flowers to funerals before, anonymously, to families of men he'd killed when guilt occasionally surfaced. But he'd never stood at their graves, never looked at the names carved in stone, never brought their children to visit. Tommy parked, and Mia climbed out clutching a bouquet of daisies she'd insisted on buying from a street vendor. Her small hand found Victor's, and she led him through rows of graves like she'd done this 100 times. She probably had. There, Mia pointed. The headstone was simple gray granite. Detective Ryan Cole, beloved father, dedicated servant 1990 to 2023. He stood for those who couldn't stand. Victor's legs felt like concrete. Each step toward that grave was harder than the last. Mia pulled him forward, oblivious to the war raging inside him. "Hi, Daddy," Mia said softly when they reached the stone. She knelt and placed the daisies carefully. "I brought someone special today. This is Mr. Romano. He's being my dad for Father's Day." Victor stood frozen, staring at the name. Ryan Cole, age 34. Killed because he'd gotten too close to Victor's operation. Killed because someone gave an order. Killed because... "You can stand beside me if you want," Mia said, looking up at him. Victor's hand trembled as he moved next to her. The guilt wasn't just crushing him, it was suffocating him, squeezing his lungs until he couldn't breathe. "I know you're watching, Daddy," Mia continued, talking to the stone like her father could hear. "I know you're proud of me. Mrs. Patterson says I'm doing really good in school. And Mr. Romano is nice. He made me pancakes this morning. They were kind of burnt, but that's okay." Victor closed his eyes. This was hell. Actual, literal hell. "I miss you every day," Mia whispered, her voice cracking. "Sometimes I forget what your voice sounds like, and that scares me. But I still remember your hugs. And how you sang off-key in the car. And how you always let me pick the movie on Friday nights." A tear rolled down Victor's cheek before he could stop it. He wiped it away quickly, but not quickly enough.
Mia noticed.
"It's okay to cry. Daddy used to say crying means you love someone enough to let it hurt." Victor pulled out his own flower, a white rose he'd grabbed without thinking. His hand shook so badly, he nearly dropped it. He knelt beside Mia and placed it next to her daisies. "I'm sorry," Victor whispered, so quietly only the dead could hear. But Mia heard too. "Why are you sorry?"
Victor és mindrést.
Because your dad deserved better than this. He deserved to see you grow up." "Yeah," Mia agreed sadly.
He did.
"But sometimes bad things happen to good people. That's what Mrs. Patterson says. She says we can't control what happens, only how we react to it." Victor looked at this impossibly wise child and felt something crack deeper inside him. She was comforting him. At her own father's grave, she was comforting the man who destroyed her life. "Your foster mother sounds smart."
She is.
"But she's not my dad." Mia stood and brushed off her dress. "Can we sit for a bit? I like to talk to him sometimes." They sat on the grass, and Mia chattered about school, her friends, a stray cat she'd been feeding. Victor only half listened. His eyes were fixed on that name. Ryan Cole, a man who'd served his city, protected the innocent, raised a daughter alone. Everything Victor wasn't. "Mr. Romano?" Mia's voice pulled him back. "Do you have anyone buried here?" Victor thought of Daniel's grave, 200 miles away in a cemetery he couldn't bear to visit.
"Yeah."
"My son." Mia's eyes went wide. "You have a son?" "Had. He died when he was 12". "Oh," Mia was quiet for a moment. "Is that why you don't like pictures? Because it hurts to remember?" Victor nodded, not trusting his voice. Mia scooted closer and leaned against his arm. My dad used to say that people we love never really leave us. They live in here, she tapped Victor's chest. As long as we remember them, they're still with us. Victor stared at this 7-year-old girl who'd lost everything and somehow still had more wisdom and grace than he'd accumulated in 40 years of living. Your dad was right about a lot of things, Victor said roughly. They sat in silence for a while, surrounded by the dead, two broken people finding strange comfort in each other's brokenness. Finally, Mia stood. Okay, I'm ready to go. We have to get to school by noon for the Father's Day assembly. Victor rose stiffly, his knees protesting. He looked down at the grave one last time. I'll take care of her, he whispered, a promise to a dead man who probably couldn't hear and definitely wouldn't forgive. As they walked back to the car, Victor didn't notice the camera lens reflecting sunlight from behind a mausoleum 50 yards away. Didn't see Marco's associate, Joey, snapping photos of the Mafia boss standing at a cop's grave with a little girl. Didn't see the beginning of the end. Tommy opened the car door, his face carefully neutral. But Victor caught his driver's eye in the rearview mirror and saw the question there. What are you doing, boss? Victor had no answer. He was improvising now, stumbling through territory he'd never mapped. All he knew was that for the next few hours, he was going to give this kid the father she deserved. Even if it killed him. Which, given his line of work, it very well might. Marco Vitelli stared at the photos on his phone, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. Joey had done his job well. Crisp, clear images of Victor Romano kneeling at a cop's grave, a little girl beside him. Victor placing a white rose. Victor with tears on his face. Victor looking weak. This is bad, boss, Joey said, hovering nervously. Real bad. If word gets out that Mr. Romano's gone soft. Shut up. I'm thinking. They were in a back room of Marco's restaurant in Little Italy, away from prying eyes. Marco had been Victor's right hand for 12 years. He'd helped build the empire, eliminate rivals, navigate wars that would have destroyed lesser men. And now Victor was risking everything for a dead cop's kid. It was insanity. Marco's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then curiosity won. Yeah.
Marco Vitelli.
The voice was smooth, cultured. This is Anthony Castellano. I believe we have mutual interest to discuss. Marco's blood turned to ice. Anthony Castellano ran the largest crime family in New York, Victor's primary rival. They'd maintained an uneasy truce for 5 years, ever since Victor had wiped out Anthony's uncle's crew. The Castellanos wanted revenge, but lacked the muscle to take it. Until now, apparently. I'm listening, Marco said carefully. I'm hearing interesting rumors. Something about Victor Romano playing daddy to a little girl. At a cemetery. No less, Anthony's voice was amused. Now, I'm thinking, a man like Victor doesn't do charity. So this girl must be special. Family, perhaps. Marco said nothing, but his silence spoke volumes. Anthony chuckled. I see. Well, here's my proposal, Marco. You and I both know Victor's getting sloppy.
Soft.
Bad for business. I'm prepared to make a very generous offer to someone with access to his organization. Someone smart enough to see which way the wind is blowing. You want me to betray him? I want you to survive. There's a difference, Anthony paused. Send me those photos. Consider it a down payment on a very profitable partnership. Marco stared at the images again. Victor crying at a grave. Victor holding a child's hand. Victor throwing away everything they'd built for one random kid. The choice should have been easy. I'll think about it, Marco said. Don't think too long. Windows of opportunity have a habit of closing. The line went dead. Joey watched nervously as Marco sat in silence. Boss, what do we do? Marco forwarded the photos to Anthony Castellano before he could change his mind. His phone rang 30 seconds later.
Smart man, Anthony Porret.
Very smart. Now tell me everything about this girl. 2 hours later, Anthony Castellano sat in his penthouse office in Tribeca, studying the photos on his laptop. His nephew, Frank, stood beside him. Younger, hungrier, always eager to prove himself. That's definitely Victor, Frank said. And the girl's maybe 7, 8 years old. 7 according to my source. Anthony zoomed in on Mia's face. Pretty little thing. And look at how Victor's looking at her. That's not business. That's personal. You think she's his daughter? Secret family. Doesn't matter what she is. What matters is that Victor cares about her. Which means she's leverage. Anthony leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. We've been looking for a way to hurt Victor Romano for 5 years. Looks like he just handed us 1 inch. Frank grinned. So we grab the girl? Eventually. First, we watch. Learn her patterns. Where she lives, where she goes to school. We need to be smart about this, Anthony's eyes gleamed. Victor's built his reputation on being untouchable, fearless. But every man has a weakness. We just found his. What about Marco? Can we trust him? Anthony shrugged. Marco's a survivor. He sees his boss going down and wants to be on the winning side. We'll use him until he's no longer useful, then dispose of him. That's how this works. Frank pulled out his phone. I'll put together a team. Light surveillance for now. Very light. Victor's paranoid for good reasons. If he even suspects someone's watching the girl, he'll move her somewhere we can't reach. Anthony looked at the photo of Victor and Mia sitting beside Ryan Cole's grave. No, we play this patient. Let Victor enjoy his little father-daughter fantasy. Let him get comfortable, careless. And then? Anthony's smile was cold. Then we take everything that matters to him and make him watch it burn. Just like he did to my uncle. Victor had no idea that 40 miles away, men were planning to destroy the one good thing he'd tried to do in 20 years. He was too busy standing backstage at Mia's school, surrounded by actual fathers in khakis and polo shirts, feeling like a wolf in a petting zoo. Mr. Romano? Mia tugged his sleeve, eyes bright with excitement. We're about to start. Are you nervous? Terrified, Victor admitted honestly.
Mia giggled.
Don't be. You just have to stand there and look like a dad. You're already good at that. Victor wasn't good at anything remotely resembling normalcy, but he followed Mia into the auditorium anyway. 200 children and their fathers filled the room. Teachers bustled about with cameras. Principal Chen gave a speech about the importance of father figures. And Victor stood beside Mia in her white dress with yellow flowers, her small hand gripping his like a lifeline, both of them pretending everything was normal. Both of them pretending they weren't already in danger. Because 3 rows back in the audience, a man with a telephoto camera was taking more pictures. Not Joey this time, one of Frank Castellano's men, documenting everything. The school name, the classroom number, the faces of Mia's teachers. Victor felt the back of his neck prickle, that sixth sense that had kept him alive through a dozen assassination attempts. Something was wrong. He scanned the crowd but saw nothing obvious. Just parents and children celebrating Father's Day. But the feeling wouldn't leave. Mr. Romano?
Mia whispered.
You okay? You look worried. Victor forced a smile.
I'm fine, kid.
Let's enjoy your day. But his hand moved instinctively to his jacket, checking for the gun he'd left in the car. Old habits. Survival instincts screaming that the walls were closing in. He just didn't know how right he was. Or how little time they had left. After the school assembly, where Mia had beamed while showing off her dad, and Victor had survived the mortifying experience of being introduced to teachers and other parents, Victor made an impulsive decision. Tommy, take us to Coney Island. His driver nearly swerved into a lamppost. Boss. Coney Island. You heard me. In the back seat, Mia's eyes went wide. Really? The amusement park? You said you wanted a real Father's Day, right? That's what dads do. They take their kids to do fun stuff. Victor had no idea if this was actually true. He'd rarely taken Daniel anywhere fun before the boy died. Work had always come first. Always the wrong choice. Mia squealed with delight, bouncing in her seat. Can we ride the cyclone? And get cotton candy? and play the ring toss games. Sure, kid. Whatever you want. 20 minutes later, Victor Romano, a man who controlled half of New York's underground economy, stood in line at a ticket booth surrounded by screaming children and exhausted parents. He was overdressed in his black suit, conspicuous and deeply uncomfortable. He'd also never felt more alive. "How many tickets, sir?" the teenage attendant asked, barely looking up from her phone. Victor looked at Mia. "How many do we need?" "Lots," Mia declared. Victor bought 200 tickets, which made the attendant finally look up and take notice. "Big day planned, huh?" "The biggest," Mia said proudly, grabbing Victor's hand. "It's Father's Day." The attendant smiled. "That's sweet. Have fun, you 2-inch." As they walked away, Victor realized the girl had assumed they were actually father and daughter. Something about that made his chest tight. For the next 2 hours, Victor Romano disappeared. In his place was just a man trying to make a little girl smile. They rode the bumper cars, Mia laughing hysterically as she crashed into Victor repeatedly. They played ring toss, where Victor's steady aim, honed by years of firearms training, won Mia a giant stuffed elephant she named Mr. Trunks. "He's perfect," Mia declared, hugging the elephant. "I'm going to keep him forever." "Forever's a long time, kid." "I know. That's how long I'll remember today." Victor had to look away before she saw his face. They rode the Ferris wheel as the sun began to set, New York City sprawling beneath them in golden light. At the top, Mia pressed her face to the window. "Mr. Romano, can I tell you something?" "Shoot. I was really scared to ask you to be my dad. Mrs. Patterson said you were a dangerous man. She showed me news articles and everything." Mia glanced at him. "But you don't seem dangerous. You seem sad." Victor's throat constricted. "Maybe I'm both." "Maybe," Mia agreed. "But my real dad used to say everyone has good and bad inside them. Like a coin with 2 sides. You just have to decide which side you show the world." "Smart man, your dad." "The smartest," Mia smiled. "I think he'd like you,
Even though you're scary sometimes.
The Ferris wheel descended, and Victor felt like he was falling too, into something he couldn't control, couldn't manipulate, couldn't fix with money or threats. Redemption, maybe. Or damnation disguised as hope. Their last stop was the ice cream stand. Mia ordered chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. Victor got vanilla, his first ice cream in probably 15 years. They sat on a bench overlooking the beach, eating in comfortable silence. At least it was comfortable until Mia somehow got ice cream on her nose, her chin, and then catastrophically on Victor's sleeve. "Oh no,"
Mia gasped.
"I'm so sorry." Victor looked at the chocolate smear on his $2,000 suit jacket and did something he hadn't done in years. He laughed. Not a polite chuckle or a dark, bitter sound. A real laugh, deep and genuine, the kind that made his sides hurt. "Kid, you're a disaster," he said, still laughing.
Mia giggled, relieved.
"My dad used to say that too. He said I was a beautiful disaster." "Sounds about right." Victor used a napkin to wipe her face, and she sat still, trusting. A nearby mother pushed a stroller past them, saw Victor cleaning Mia's face, and smiled warmly. "She's lucky to have such a patient dad," the woman said. "Mine would have lost it by now."
Victor froze.
The woman thought she actually thought. "Thank you," he managed. The woman walked on, oblivious. But her words hung in the air like smoke. A patient dad. Victor had been called many things in his life.
Boss. Killer. Monster.
Sociopath. Never patient. Never dad. "Mr. Romano?" Mia tugged his sleeve. "Are you crying again?" "No," Victor wiped his eyes quickly. "Just something in my eye." Mia didn't sound convinced, but she let it go. Instead, she leaned against his side, sticky and content. This was the best day ever. Yeah. Thank you for being my dad today." Victor put his arm around her small shoulders, this child who'd lost everything and still found joy in ice cream and stuffed elephants. This child who'd somehow cracked open his carefully constructed armor and found the human being he'd buried 2 decades ago. "Thank you for asking me," he said quietly. They watched the sun set over Coney Island, 2 broken souls pretending to be whole, neither knowing that in the parking lot, a black SUV sat watching. Inside, Frank Castellano's men documented everything with long-range cameras. The ice cream, the laughter, the hug. Evidence of weakness. Evidence of leverage. Evidence that Victor Romano cared about something other than power. And, in their world, caring was the most dangerous thing you could do. As they walked back to the car, Mia carrying Mr. Trunks, Victor carrying what was left of his ice cream, Victor's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Cute kid. Would be a shame if something happened to her." Victor's blood turned to ice. His hand instinctively moved to shield Mia as his eyes scanned the parking lot. Dozens of cars. Hundreds of people. Impossible to spot a threat. "What's wrong?" Mia asked, sensing his sudden tension. "Nothing, kid." Victor forced his voice steady. "Let's get you home." But everything was wrong. Someone was watching.
Someone knew about Mia.
And Victor had just made the biggest mistake of his criminal career. He'd shown them he cared. Victor's instinct screamed at him the moment they pulled onto the highway. Tommy was driving too fast, checking mirrors too often. Something was wrong. "Boss," Tommy said quietly, eyes on the rearview. "Black Escalade. Been following us since Coney Island." Victor's jaw clenched. "How many occupants?" "At least 3. Maybe 4-inch." In the back seat, Mia hummed happily, oblivious, hugging Mr. Trunks. Victor calculated angles, exit strategies, potential casualties. The highway was packed with evening traffic, too many civilians, too many witnesses. "Take the next exit," Victor ordered. "We'll lose them in the side streets." Tommy merged right, but the Escalade followed. Then a second vehicle appeared, a black Charger, boxing them in from the left. "Boss, we've got company on both sides." Victor's hand moved to the gun holster at his ankle. "When I say duck, you hit the brakes hard. Understand?" "Yes, sir." "Mr. Romano?" Mia's voice was small. "Why are you acting weird?" Victor turned to her, forcing a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. "Just a car game, kid. When I say duck, you get down on the floor, okay? Like hide and seek." Mia's eyes widened. She wasn't stupid. She knew something was wrong, but she nodded bravely. The Escalade pulled alongside them. Victor saw the rear window rolling down. "Duck," he shouted. Tommy slammed the brakes. Mia dropped to the floor, and the world exploded in gunfire. Bullets punched through the passenger window, spiderwebbing the bulletproof glass, but not penetrating. Victor threw himself over Mia, shielding her small body with his own. More shots. The Charger was firing too, trying to shred their tires. "Go, go, go."
Victor yelled.
Tommy floored it, the Mercedes engine roaring. They swerved through traffic, horns blaring. The Escalade tried to keep pace, still firing. A bullet hit the rear window, and this time the glass cracked deeper. "They've got armor-piercing rounds," Tommy shouted. Victor made a split-second decision. "Take the warehouse district."
"Now."
They careened off the exit ramp, tires screaming. The pursuit vehicles followed. Mia sobbed on the floor, her hands over her ears. Victor kept his body over hers, feeling every bump and turn. "Almost there, kid," he said softly. "Just hold on." The warehouse district was a maze of abandoned buildings and dead-end streets, territory Victor knew intimately. Tommy whipped around corners, the Mercedes' superior handling buying them seconds. "Left here," Victor directed. Then, immediate right. They skidded into an alley barely wide enough for the car. The Escalade tried to follow and scraped metal against brick walls, slowing down. The Charger overshot the turn entirely. "Stop here," Victor commanded. Tommy hit the brakes. Victor was already moving, pulling Mia from the floor. "Listen to me very carefully. We're going to run to that building." He pointed to a warehouse with a broken door. "Stay behind me. Don't stop. Don't look back. Understand? Mia nodded, tears streaming down her face, still clutching this stuffed elephant. They burst from the car just as the Escalade screeched into the alley behind them. Victor shoved Mia toward the warehouse, his body between her and the gunman. Shots rang out, bullets whining past his head. 10 feet from the door. 5 feet. Something hot punched Victor's left arm, spinning him sideways. He bit back a scream and kept moving, grabbing Mia with his right hand and diving through the warehouse entrance. More gunfire shattered windows above them. Victor kicked the door shut and dragged Mia behind a concrete pillar. His arm was on fire, blood soaking through his jacket. "You're hurt." Mia's voice was panicked. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine." Victor pulled out his phone with shaking hands and texted an address to a contact marked only as L. Then he sent another message. Code black. Hostile pursuit. Immediate extraction. Outside. Car doors slammed. Voices shouted in Italian. At least 4 men, maybe 5. Professional hitters, not street thugs. Castellano's men. Victor checked his gun 6 rounds. Not nearly enough. "Mr. Romano?" Mia's voice was tiny.
I'm scared.
"Me too, kid." Victor pulled her close with his good arm. "But I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. I promise." Footsteps approached the warehouse. Victor heard the distinctive sound of shotgun pumps. Then, Salvation sirens in the distance. Getting closer. "Police!" Someone shouted outside. "Drop your weapons." The footsteps retreated. Engine started. Tires squealed. Within seconds, the attack was over, the shooters vanishing like smoke. Victor slumped against the pillar, his arm throbbing. Mia immediately crawled to him, her small hands fluttering over his wound. "We need to stop the bleeding," she said, her voice steadier now. She pulled off her white cardigan, now dirty and torn, and pressed it against his arm. "My dad taught me first aid. He said pressure stops bleeding." Victor watched this 7-year-old girl, traumatized and terrified, trying to save the man who'd gotten her into this mess. The man who'd killed her father. The man who was now bleeding because he'd chosen to protect her. "You're a brave kid," he managed. "You got hurt because of me," Mia whispered, tears falling onto his jacket. Victor lifted her chin with his good hand, looking into her eyes.
No, Keith.
"I got hurt because I've done too many wrong things. But this," he gestured at his wound, "this might be the first right thing I've done in 20 years. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows. "Police." Victor should run, but he was too tired and had lost too much blood. "Mr. Romano?" Mia's voice was fading, or maybe that was just him losing consciousness. "Yeah. Thank you for saving me." Victor closed his eyes. "Thank you for reminding me I was human." The warehouse door burst open. Flashlights. Shouting. Mia screaming that he needed help. And Victor Romano, Mafia boss, killer, monster, let himself sink into darkness, knowing that for one day, he'd been something better. He'd been a dad. Victor woke to the smell of antiseptic and the feeling of soft hands wrapping gauze around his arm. His eyes opened to find Lucia leaning over him, her face tight with worry. "Welcome back, Mr. Romano," she said quietly. "You've been out for 2 hours." He was in one of his safe houses, a nondescript apartment in Queens that even Marco didn't know about. The room was small, sparsely furnished, with blackout curtains and reinforced doors. "Secure."
Mia.
Victor's voice came out rough. "In the next room. She wouldn't leave your side until I promised she could check on you every 10 minutes. Lucia finished the bandage and sat back. "The bullet went clean through. You'll live, though you should see a real doctor." "Can't risk it." Victor tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through his arm. "The police let you go?" "I told them we were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Anonymous gang violence. They bought it." Barely, Lucia's eyes were hard. "Mr. Romano, what have you gotten yourself into?" Before Victor could answer, the door opened. Mia stood there, still clutching Mr. Trunks, her face pale and tear-stained. When she saw Victor awake, she ran to him. "You're okay." She stopped just short of hugging him, afraid to hurt his arm. "I was so scared you were going to die." "Takes more than that to kill me, kid." Victor tried to smile, but it felt hollow. Lucia stood. "I'll make tea." "You two need to talk." She left, closing the door behind her with a meaningful look. Mia climbed carefully onto the couch beside Victor, her small frame barely making a dent in the cushions. For a long moment, neither spoke. The safe house was silent except for the distant sound of traffic. "Those men were trying to kill us," Mia finally said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes. Because of you. Because of what you do." Victor looked at this impossibly perceptive child and knew the time for pretending was over. "Yes." Mia hugged Mr. Trunks tighter. "My dad was investigating bad people when he died. Mrs. Patterson told me. She said he was trying to stop criminals from hurting people." Victor's stomach twisted.
Mia.
"Were you one of the bad people he was investigating?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Victor could lie, should lie. But when he looked at Mia's eyes, her father's eyes, he couldn't do it. "Yes," he whispered. Mia didn't cry, didn't scream. She just stared at him with those dark, knowing eyes. "Did you kill my dad?" "Not directly," Victor's voice cracked. "But I'm responsible. My men were in a situation that went wrong. Your father was caught in the crossfire. If I hadn't given the orders that put them there, if I hadn't built the empire that required protection, if I hadn't," he stopped, his throat closing. "I might as well have pulled the trigger myself." The silence was unbearable. Victor waited for Mia to run, to scream, to tell him she hated him. Instead, she set Mr. Trunks aside and looked at him with devastating clarity. "You knew," she said softly. "When I showed you his picture in the alley, you knew who he was." "Yes." "And you still said yes to being my dad for a day." Victor nodded, unable to speak. Mia's lower lip trembled. Then the tears came, not angry tears, but deep, soul-breaking sobs. She cried for her father, for her lost childhood, for the impossible situation they were both trapped in. Victor wanted to comfort her, but didn't feel he had the right. He just sat there, bleeding through his bandage, watching this little girl's heart break all over again. Finally, Mia wiped her eyes and looked at him. "Why did you say yes? If you knew you killed my dad, why did you agree to be my pretend dad?" Victor had asked himself the same question 100 times. "Because I thought I could give you one good day. One day where you felt like you had a father again. I thought," he laughed bitterly. "I thought maybe I could do one good thing before I died. Turns out I just made everything worse." "You saved my life today," Mia said quietly. "You got shot protecting me. That's not making things worse. I'm the reason you were in danger in the first place." Maybe Mia scooted closer, surprising him. "But you're also the reason I'm alive right now. My dad used to say that people aren't just one thing. They're not all good or all bad. They're both mixed together." Victor looked at this child who should hate him, who had every right to hate him, and saw only compassion in her eyes.
It was more than he deserved.
More than he could bear. "I'm sorry," he said, the words breaking.
I'm so sorry, Mia.
"I can't bring your father back. I can't undo what I've done. But I'm sorry." Mia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that changed everything. "Then make it right. Please." Victor stared at her. "What?" "My dad always said sorry doesn't mean anything without action. If you're really sorry, then do something about it. Be better. Help people instead of hurting them." Her voice was fierce despite the tears. "Don't let my dad die for nothing." No one had ever asked Victor Romano to be better. They'd asked him to be stronger, richer, more ruthless. But never better. Never good. "I don't know if I can," he admitted. "Try," Mia said simply. "That's all my dad ever asked of people. Just try." She leaned against his good shoulder, and Victor put his arm around her. They sat like that while the sun set outside the blackout curtains, a killer and his victim's daughter, bound together by tragedy and an impossible request. To be better. To try. In the kitchen, Lucia listened through the door, tears running down her face. In all her years working for Victor Romano, she'd never heard him apologize for anything. Maybe miracles were possible after all. Or maybe they were both about to get killed for believing in one. Victor's phone buzzed at 3 a.m. He hadn't been sleeping, couldn't sleep with Mia in the next room, and assassins hunting them. His arm throbbed despite the painkillers Lucia had given him. The text was from Tommy. Boss. Need to see you. Alone.
Urgent.
Victor texted back an address. A 24-hour diner in Brooklyn. Public enough to be safe. He checked on Mia one last time. She was curled up under blankets, Mr. Trunks clutched to her chest, finally sleeping after hours of nightmares. Lucia appeared in the doorway. You're going out? In your condition? I have to. Stay with her. Don't open the door for anyone except me. Not even Marco. Victor met her eyes. Especially not Marco. Something in his tone made Lucia nod without argument. She'd worked for Victor long enough to know when something was dangerously wrong. Tommy sat in a corner booth, a cup of cold coffee in front of him. His face was pale, and his hands shook slightly. Tommy, who'd driven through 3 ambushes without flinching. Victor slid into the booth. Talk. Boss, I didn't know who else to tell. I've been with you for 8 years. Loyal. You know that, right? Tommy, what is it? Tommy pulled out his phone and opened a photo. Victor's blood turned to ice. It was him and Mia at the cemetery. A perfect shot of them standing at Ryan Cole's grave, Victor's hand on Mia's shoulder. Professional quality. Surveillance grade. Where did you get this? Joey, Marco's guy. He's been drinking at my brother's bar. Got sloppy drunk last night and started bragging. Tommy's voice was tight with anger. Said Marco had him following you all day yesterday. Taking pictures. Documenting everything. Victor's jaw clenched. Keep talking. Joey said Marco sent the photos to someone. Wouldn't say who, but Tommy pulled up another image. I managed to grab his phone while he was in the bathroom. Found this in his deleted messages. The screenshot showed a text conversation. The contact was listed as AC, and the messages made Victor's blood boil.
Atsi, smart man.
Very smart. Now tell me everything about this girl, Marco. Her name is Mia Cole, detective's daughter. Victor's been playing house with her, AC. Perfect. Keep me updated on locations. There's a bonus in this for you, Marco. Just get me out before the ship sinks. AC, Victor said quietly. Anthony Castellano. That's what I figured. Tommy looked sick. Boss, Marco sold you out. He's the reason those shooters knew where you'd be. He's been feeding them information. Victor stared at the messages, rage building in his chest like a pressure cooker.
Marco.
His right-hand man for 12 years. The person he'd trusted with his life, his business, his secrets. Selling him out to protect himself. There's more, Tommy said hesitantly. I did some digging. Marco's been moving money. A lot of money. Into offshore accounts. Has been for months. How much? 3 million. Maybe more. And boss, Tommy swallowed hard. I found something else in Joey's phone. Proof that the hit on Detective Cole 2 years ago, it wasn't random crossfire. Victor's entire body went still. What are you saying? Tommy showed him another screenshot, a text thread from 2 years ago. Marco to an unknown number. The cops getting too close to the warehouse operation. Needs to be handled. Make it look accidental. The unknown number. Consider it done. The date stamp was 3 days before Ryan Cole died. Victor felt like he'd been punched in the gut. The ambush. The random gang violence. The detective who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It had all been Marco. Marco had ordered the hit. Marco had killed Mia's father. Marco had set up the situation that destroyed that little girl's life. And then, when Victor had tried to make amends, tried to give Mia one good day, Marco had betrayed him again to save his own skin.
Boss.
Tommy's voice sounded distant. What do you want me to do? Victor's hands were shaking with fury. Where is Marco now? His restaurant. Joey said he's there every night until 4 a.m., counting money. Victor stood, his wounded arm screaming in protest. His face was a mask of cold rage, the face that had made men beg for mercy before he killed them. Boss, you're in no condition. Get the car. You're going after him?
Now.
Victor looked at Tommy with eyes that held no mercy, no hesitation. Marco killed a good cop and left his daughter an orphan. Then he tried to get that same little girl killed to cover his own tracks. He's betrayed everything we built, not that it was worth much to begin with, and he's destroyed the one chance I had at doing something right. What are you going to do? What I should have done years ago. Victor headed for the door. Clean house. 20 minutes later, Victor stood outside Marco's restaurant. Through the window, he could see his former lieutenant counting cash at a table, Joey standing guard. Victor's phone buzzed. A text from Lucia. Mia woke up asking for you. What should I tell her? Victor stared at the message. He thought about Mia's words. Make it right. Be better. He thought about the promise he'd made at Ryan Cole's grave. And he thought about Marco inside, the man who'd killed her father and was now trying to kill her too. For the first time in 20 years, Victor Romano had to choose between the monster he'd always been and the man a 7-year-old girl believed he could become. Between revenge and redemption. Between the gun in his jacket and the phone in his hand. He made his choice. Victor texted back. Tell her I'm fixing a mistake. Tell her I'm trying to be better. Then he dialed 911. I'd like to report illegal activity at Marco's Ristorante in Little Italy, Victor said calmly. Money laundering, racketeering, and evidence of a murder for hire from 2 years ago. Detective Ryan Cole, NYPD. The evidence is in the office safe, combination 4-7-2-9-inch. He hung up and watched through the window as Marco laughed at something Joey said, completely unaware that his empire was about to collapse. Victor turned and walked away.
No confrontación.
No violence. No satisfaction of seeing Marco's face when he realized who destroyed him. Just the quiet knowledge that for once, maybe for the first time, Victor Romano had chosen to be better instead of worse. For Mia. But as he climbed into Tommy's car, Victor's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Very noble, Victor. Anthony Castellano's smooth voice purred. Turning in your own, Lieutenant. But it doesn't change anything. I have 40 men. You have a wounded arm and a little girl to protect. How long do you think you can run? The line went dead. Victor closed his eyes. He'd chosen redemption. But redemption came with a price. And that price was about to be paid in blood. Victor burst through the safe house door at 4:15 a.m. Lucia jumped from the couch, her hand on her chest. Mr. Romano, you scared me half to. We need to leave. Now Victor was already moving toward Mia's room. They found us.
How?
We've been so careful. Marco had tracking software on my phone. I just figured it out. Victor cursed himself for being so stupid, so careless. Get Mia ready. We have maybe 10 minutes. But they didn't even have 5. The window exploded inward, glass spraying across the living room. Smoke grenades followed, filling the apartment with thick gray clouds. Lucia screamed. Victor grabbed her and pulled her toward Mia's room. Mia, he shouted through the smoke. We're leaving now. The little girl emerged from her room, eyes wide with terror, clutching Mr. Trunks. Victor scooped her up with his good arm, his wounded one screaming in protest. There's a tunnel, he told Lucia. Kitchen pantry, behind the false wall. It leads to the building next door. Take Mia. Don't stop running until you reach Tommy. He's waiting 2 blocks south in a blue Honda. What about you? Lucia demanded. I'll hold them off. Give you time.
No.
Mia struggled in Lucia's arms as the housekeeper grabbed her. You can't stay. They'll kill you. Victor met Mia's eyes. In that moment, he saw Ryan Cole's daughter, the brave little girl who'd stood in the rain and asked a monster to be her father. The child who'd asked him to be better. Listen to me, kid. I need you to be brave one more time.
Can you do that?
Mia nodded, tears streaming down her face. Good. Now go with Lucia. Don't look back. And remember, Victor's voice cracked. Remember that today, for just one day, I got to be your dad. And that was the best thing I ever did. Mr. Romano.
Go.
Lucia pulled Mia toward the kitchen as the front door exploded off its hinges. Men in tactical gear poured through, at least 6 of them, maybe more through the smoke. Victor fired twice, dropping the first 2. There's more coming through the windows. Lucia shouted from the kitchen. Victor ran to the kitchen entrance and saw them, 2 men climbing through, weapons raised. He fired again, caught one in the shoulder. The man fell back, screaming. The tunnel.
Now.
Victor shoved Lucia toward the pantry. She wrenched open the false panel, revealing a narrow crawl space. Come with us. No room for all of us. They'll catch up. Victor grabbed her shoulder. Lucia, listen. Tell Mia, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her she made me remember what it felt like to be human. Tell her yourself when this is over.
Victor smiled sadly.
We both know how this ends. Lucia's eyes filled with tears, but she was smart enough to know he was right. She climbed into the tunnel, pulling Mia behind her. The little girl was crying, reaching back for Victor. I don't want you to die.
Mia sobbed.
Please don't die. Sometimes heroes have to die, kid. That's how the good stories end. Victor's voice was gentle despite the gunfire behind him. Now go. Make your dad proud. He slammed the panel shut and shoved a refrigerator in front of it. It wouldn't stop them long, but it might buy Lucia and Mia the extra seconds they needed. Victor turned to face the living room. Through the thinning smoke, he counted shapes. 8 men, maybe 10, all Castellano soldiers, here to kill him and take the girl. Not happening. Victor had 2 magazines left, 24 rounds, against 10 armed professionals. The math wasn't good. But math had never been his strong suit anyway.
Victor Romano.
Anthony Castellano's voice echoed from outside the apartment. You're surrounded. Send out the girl, and we'll make it quick. Come get her yourself. Victor shouted back. He didn't wait for a response. He moved fast, years of survival instincts taking over. First target. The man by the window. Victor fired twice, headshot. Second target. Covering behind the couch. 3 shots, center mass. Third target. Pain exploded in Victor's leg. He'd been hit. He dropped behind the kitchen counter, blood soaking through his pants. His wounded arm was barely functional, his leg was compromised, and he was running out of ammo. He checked his watch. 3 minutes since Lucia and Mia entered the tunnel. Not enough time. More gunfire tore through the apartment. Victor blind-fired over the counter, buying seconds. 4 rounds left. 3, 2. He heard footsteps in the tunnel.
No.
Victor dragged himself to the refrigerator and shoved it aside with his last strength. The panel was open. One of Castellano's men had found the tunnel and was climbing through. Victor aimed with shaking hands and fired his last bullet. The man dropped.
Click.
Empty. Victor pulled his backup piece, a snub-nosed revolver he'd carried for 20 years. 5 rounds. He crawled into the tunnel entrance, wedging his body in the narrow space. If they wanted to reach Mia and Lucia, they'd have to go through him. Literally. Boss is down, someone shouted. Check the tunnel. Footsteps approached. Victor aimed at the opening, waiting. His vision was blurring from blood loss. He thought about Daniel, about Ryan Cole, about Mia's face when she'd asked him to be better. He'd tried. God, he'd tried. A figure appeared at the tunnel entrance. Victor fired, once, twice, 3 times. The figure fell. More shouting. More footsteps. Victor had 2 bullets left and was bleeding out fast. But Lucia and Mia had been running for 5 minutes now. Maybe 6. Tommy would have them. They'd be safe. That was enough.
Victor.
Anthony Castellano's voice was closer now. It's over. You're finished. Yeah, Victor whispered to the darkness. But so are you. He'd made one more call while driving back to the safe house, not to the police this time, to someone much more dangerous.
To the FBI.
He'd given them everything. Every account number, every name, every operation. 40 years of criminal enterprise, handed over in exchange for one promise: witness protection for a little girl named Mia Cole. The sirens in the distance were getting closer. Not police this time. Federal agents. Anthony Castellano had maybe 3 minutes before his entire organization was rolled up. Victor smiled through the pain. He'd burned it all down. Everything he'd built, everyone he'd worked with, destroyed his entire empire to save one little girl. Worth it. A shadow filled the tunnel entrance. Victor raised his gun with the last of his strength. For Mia, he whispered, and pulled the trigger. Victor's last bullet caught Anthony Castellano in the chest. The crime boss stumbled backward, shock on his face, and collapsed in the kitchen. His men rushed forward, but it was too late. The sirens were right outside now, and federal agents were storming the building. FBI, drop your weapons. Castellano's soldiers scattered like rats. Some tried to fight, and were immediately taken down. Others fled through windows, and were caught in the street. Within minutes, the entire operation was in federal custody. Victor lay in the tunnel entrance, his gun falling from nerveless fingers. Blood pooled beneath him. Too much blood. He'd been hit in the leg, shoulder, and abdomen. His body was shutting down, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Footsteps approached.
Combat boots.
Federal agents. We've got a man down. Need medical here now. Hands rolled him over carefully. Victor's vision was fading, the world becoming soft around the edges. He saw federal badges, concerned faces, radios crackling with urgent commands. Sir, can you hear me? Sir, stay with us. Victor tried to speak, but could only manage a whisper. The agent leaned closer. The girl, Victor breathed.
Mia kill.
Witness protection. I gave you everything. Promise me, you'll keep her safe. The agent's face was grim. Sir, save your strength. Paramedics are coming. Promise me. Victor's hand grabbed the agent's vest with surprising strength. I promise. We have her in protective custody. She's safe. Victor's grip relaxed. Safe. Mia was safe. That was all that mattered. Mr. Romano, we need you to stay awake, another agent said urgently. Tell us about Marco Vitella. Tell us about the Castellano operations. But Victor was drifting now, floating somewhere between consciousness and darkness. He thought about Mia's smile at Coney Island, the ice cream on his suit, her small hand in his at the cemetery. Tell her, Victor whispered. Tell Mia. Her father was a hero. Your daughter? Sir, she's fine, she's...
No.
Her real father, Detective Ryan Cole. Victor's breathing was shallow, labored. He was the hero, not me. I was just trying to make up for taking him away. The agent's expression shifted. Understanding, then pity. You're Ryan Cole's. I killed him. Victor's eyes found the agent's. Not directly. But I gave the orders that put him in danger. Marco executed it. But the blood is on my hands. Mr. Romano, promise me you'll tell her. Promise she'll know. Her real father died protecting this city. Protecting people like her. Victor coughed, blood on his lips. And tell her I'm sorry. Tell her she made me remember what it felt like to be good. The paramedics arrived, but Victor could barely hear them. The world was fading, getting quieter. He felt them lifting him onto a stretcher, felt the motion of being carried. But it all seemed distant, unimportant. In the ambulance, as they worked frantically to save him, Victor's mind drifted to Daniel. His son would be 17 now if he'd lived. Would he have been proud of his father in these last moments? Probably not. Victor had been a terrible father to Daniel, absent, cold, focused on building an empire instead of being present. But with Mia, for just one day, he'd gotten it right. One day of pancakes and ice cream. One day of holding a small hand and feeling needed. One day of being called Dad, without flinching. It wasn't enough to erase 40 years of sins. But it was something. We're losing him, a paramedic shouted.
BP dripping, pulsvik.
Victor heard the words, but they didn't frighten him. He'd lived longer than he deserved anyway. Longer than most men in his profession. He'd built an empire on blood and fear, and now he was paying the price. Fair trade. His last thought before the darkness took him was of a little girl in a yellow raincoat, standing in the rain, asking a monster if he could be her father for just one day. And somehow, impossibly, he had been. 2 miles away, in a federal safe house, Lucia held Mia as the little girl sobbed into her shoulder. They'd heard the gunfire, seen the federal agents rushing toward the apartment building, watched the ambulances arrive. Tommy sat nearby, his face gray, his hands shaking. Is he gone? Mia whispered, already knowing the answer. An FBI agent, Special Agent Rodriguez, entered the room, his expression carefully neutral. But his eyes told the story. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Mr. Romano didn't make it. He died in the ambulance en route to the hospital. Mia's wail was heartbreaking, the sound of a child losing a parent for the second time. Lucia held her tighter, her own tears falling. He saved you, Agent Rodriguez said gently. His last words were about making sure you were safe. He gave us everything, every detail of his organization, the Castellanos, everyone. He burned it all down to protect you. He promised he wouldn't die, Mia sobbed. He promised. Rodriguez knelt beside her. He also asked me to tell you something. He said to tell you that your real father, Detective Ryan Cole, was a hero, that he died protecting people, and he wanted you to know that you made him remember what it felt like to be good. Mia cried harder, clutching Mr. Trunks like a lifeline. There's something else, Rodriguez continued. Mr. Romano arranged for a trust fund in your name. Every asset he had, legitimate businesses, properties, investments.
It's all yours now.
Enough to pay for your education, set you up for life. And he established a foundation. The Romano Foundation for Orphan Children. Lucia's eyes widened. He did what? He signed the papers 2 hours ago, while hiding in a parking garage. Had his lawyer meet him there. Rodriguez shook his head. He knew he wasn't going to survive. He planned for it. Mia looked up, her face streaked with tears. He really did try to be better, didn't he? Yes, Rodriguez said softly. In the end, he did. Outside, the sun was rising over New York City, a new day beginning as Victor Romano's ended. Somewhere in Little Italy, Marco Vitelli was being arrested in his restaurant. Across town, what remained of the Castellano family was being rounded up by federal agents. And in a safe house in Queens, a 7-year-old girl mourned the man who'd killed her father and then died trying to make it right. The universe, it seemed, had a strange sense of justice after all. 6 months later. Autumn had painted Greenwood Cemetery in shades of gold and crimson. Leaves tumbled across headstones, and the air carried the crisp promise of winter. Mia Cole, now 8 years old, walked between the graves with steady steps, no longer the frightened child who'd stood in the rain begging a stranger to be her father. Lucia walked beside her, carrying 2 bouquets, one of daisies, one of white roses. They stopped first at the familiar gray granite headstone. Detective Ryan Cole, beloved father, dedicated servant 1990 to 2023, he stood for those who couldn't stand. Mia knelt and placed the daisies carefully at the base.
Daddy.
Sorry I haven't visited in a while. Mrs. Patterson, well, I guess I should call her mom now since the adoption went through. She says I needed time to heal. And I think she was right. She traced her fingers over the carved letters of his name. School's going really well. I'm getting A's in everything, even math. Remember how you used to help me with fractions? I still use your tricks, she smiled sadly. And I joined the Junior Police Explorers program. I want to be like you someday. Help people. Make a difference. The wind rustled through the oak tree above, and Mia chose to believe it was her father's way of saying he was proud. I met someone, Daddy. Someone you were investigating when you died. His name was Victor Romano. Mia's voice wavered. I know you probably would have arrested him if you'd lived.
I know he was part of what happened to you. But Daddy.
He tried to be better. At the end, he really tried. She wiped her eyes. He saved my life. And he made sure I'd be okay after he was gone. The foundation he started has already helped 23 kids find homes. Kids like me who lost their parents. Mia stood and looked at the sky. I think you'd understand, Daddy. You always said people could change if they wanted to badly enough.
Victor wanted to.
For me. Because I asked him to be better. She kissed her fingers and touched the headstone. I love you, Daddy. Forever and always. Lucia handed her the second bouquet. White roses, Victor's flower. They walked 50 yards to a newer grave, the stone still bright and unmarked by weather. Victor Romano, 1985 to 2025. He gave her life back. It was a simple headstone, nothing like the elaborate mausoleums of other wealthy men in the cemetery. Victor had specified in his will that he wanted to be buried here, in the same cemetery as Detective Ryan Cole. Near the man I wronged, the will had read. Near the hero. The foundation had paid for the burial. Lucia, Tommy, and Mia had been the only attendees at the funeral. No criminal associates, no former allies. Just 3 people whose lives he'd changed in his final days. Mia knelt and placed the white roses. Hi, Mr. Romano. I brought your favorite flowers. She set Mr. Trunks, now worn and patched, beside the headstone. I brought him too. I thought you might like the company. Don't worry, I'll take him home before we leave. Mia settled cross-legged on the grass, like she was having a conversation with an old friend. The FBI agent, Mr. Rodriguez, he came by last week. He said the information you gave them shut down 3 major crime families. Hundreds of arrests. He said you saved a lot of lives by telling the truth. She pulled at the grass absently. Mrs. Patterson, Mom, she says you were complicated. She says you did terrible things but tried to make them right at the end. I think that's true. You weren't perfect, but you tried. That's what you promised me you'd do. Just try. Mia's voice grew softer. I miss you. I know that's weird. I only knew you for 1 day.
But it was the best day.
You made me feel safe when I was scared. You made me pancakes even though you didn't know how. You won me, Mr. Trunks, and took me on the Ferris wheel. Tears rolled down her cheeks. And you died protecting me. You died being the dad you promised to be. She touched the stone gently. Mom says I'm allowed to love you both. My real dad, and you. She says the heart is big enough for 2 fathers, one who gave me life, and one who gave it back. I think she's right. Lucia knelt beside Mia and put an arm around her. He'd be proud of you, little one. So proud. You think so? I know so. I worked for Mr. Romano for 8 years, and I never saw him smile. Not once. But that day with you? He smiled. He laughed. You gave him something nobody else could. You gave him hope that he could be better. Mia stood and looked at both graves, her father's and Victor's, side by side in eternal rest. I had 2 dads, she said quietly, speaking to both stones. One gave me life. One gave it back. And I'm going to make you both proud. I promise. She picked up Mr. Trunks and hugged him tight. I'm going to help people like Dad did. And I'm going to believe people can change, like Mr. Romano did. And I'm going to remember that everyone has good inside them, even when they forget where they put it. As they walked toward the cemetery gates, Mia turned back one last time. In the fading autumn light, the 2 graves sat peacefully, a hero and a villain, connected forever by one little girl's courage and capacity for forgiveness. Near the entrance, they passed a new plaque on a bench. The Romano Foundation for Orphan Children, founded in memory of Mia's day. Everyone deserves a second chance. Mia smiled through her tears. Victor had kept his promise. He'd tried to be better. And in trying, he'd become something he never thought possible. He'd become a hero to one little girl. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. The end.